What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. And you thought the incomings have stopped at Tottenham Hotspur. No, they haven't, as we got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano for Luca Vusković, a very highly rated 16-year-old central defender from Croatia. As Romano broke yesterday, saying that Tottenham are on the verge of signing Croatia centre-back top talent Luca Vusković after top project for his development. Vusković only wants Spurs despite interest from five top clubs. Personal terms have agreed. Clubs finalising the paperwork. Here we go. At a time, PSG and Man City were very interested in Luca, as well as other top clubs. Man City actually made a €12 million bid offer for the 16-year-old centre-back in April, but Spurs have won a crazy race for the central defender, and Ali Gold has also confirmed, saying deal almost done for Spurs to sign 16-year-old Luca Vusković from Hajduk Split. As per Fabrizio Romano, the young centre-back is expected to join Tottenham in 2025 after he turns 18. Luca Vusković is a 16-year-old and has made 8 first-team appearances already for Hajduk Split. At 16-year-old, he's 6'4", and he's the youngest player ever to play in the Croatian top flight, and the youngest player to ever play in the fiercely hot derby Hajduk Split against Dynamo Zagreb, and is the youngest goal scorer in Hajduk Split's history, and he achieved all this within 5 days of his 16th birthday. And a Croatian publication that's quite interesting says that Luka Vusković to Tottenham opens the door for Ivan Perisic to join Hajduk Split, with the move becoming increasingly realistic. Perisic is likely to become a Hajduk player on the first few days of the January transfer window. So maybe that's the kind of moving part that kind of accelerated this deal to Tottenham.
It doesn't surprise me because we have a lot of wingers at the moment as well, especially with Brian Hill coming back. So if Perisic wants to leave, look, that will happen potentially in January. But look, in terms of the centre back, he sounds extremely promising, then extremely exciting. Obviously, we're not going to see him for 2 years, so it's hard to get too excited right now about what he could bring to Tottenham. And in 2 years' time, he's still only going to be 18. So is he definitely going to be a first team player even in 2 years' time when he comes to Tottenham? We have to wait and see. And also, how many players at 16 years of age look like the real deal and look very good, and then they struggle to make that final step up? We've seen it many times. So it's hard to get too excited and go too over the top. But I've seen clips of him. I'm doing the research. He looks like an unbelievable talent, and 6'4" for a 16-year-old is extremely rare. Clearly, physically, he's going to be a bit of a monster. I saw him score a goal for Hajduk Split under 21s from the halfway line as well. He seems to have an unbelievable. Yeah, he took a shot from the halfway line. He's unbelievable, and ended up scoring. So he seems to have a rocket of a right foot as well. It seems like an unbelievable talent, but look, it's one definitely for the future. So I think it's one we'll come back to in a couple of years' time, I guess.
And you're looking at Spurs now with the kind of young talent that we have, including this guy. And it does seem like the future's very bright at Tottenham with all these kind of youth players coming through. And you can definitely see like a change up in the strategy of transfer recruitment. You're looking at Valise coming in. You're looking at a couple of boys from Man City coming in the last year as well. I mean, you can definitely see that we're definitely trying to plan for the future here at Tottenham.
Yeah, and that's what we should be doing. We should be making more use of the academy. We've got amazing facilities for young players. So I think that's the right way to go about it. It's all about making sure that when the time comes, instead of restricting their game time, we have to allow them some sort of pathway to be able to get game time for the first team. It will be for nothing, and we end up losing good players, and they end up going on to do big things for other clubs, and that's not what we want. But you know, the Chelsea model, for a long time has been buying up loads of young players, and then even if you don't use them, you sell them on for good money with all these good loan spells. So maybe that's something to look at.
Yeah. But let's talk about these interesting Harry Kane comments that have been doing the rounds over the weekend with his interview with The Independent, I think it was. A lot of Spurs fans are getting very angry about these kind of comments. I mean, the ones that we're going to focus on, we'll focus on the ones in a second, but he was saying, like, he was alluding that he was jealous of his counterparts in the England squad going to win titles, going to win Champions Leagues. But the comment that has made Spurs fans really angry is this one. It goes, it's definitely a different pressure compared to what I felt at Spurs. Obviously, he's talking about his Bayern Munich and what they're trying to do. And he says, of course, we wanted to win big things at Spurs, but if you went a couple of games without winning, then it wasn't a disaster. The feeling at Bayern is that you have to win every game. We won the first 2 games 4-0 and 3-1, and there was still talk about not being too happy about the way we played. That's part and parcel of being at one of the biggest clubs in the world. I mean, a lot of Spurs fans think he's throwing shade at Tottenham Hotspur. In my opinion, I think like it's just the reality of the situation. I mean, he is going to a much bigger club in Bayern Munich. That's just the reality of the situation. If they don't win the league, it is considered as a massive disaster. As you can see, they've won the last 10 years in the Bundesliga or something. But I mean, did you take anything negative from these comments?
I think naturally it is negative, just because, but the reality, if you're a Tottenham fan and you want your club to be considered one of the biggest in Europe or biggest in England, the reality of how the club has been over the past forever, to be honest, ever since we've been in the Premier League for a long time, the reality is we haven't had that kind of pressure or mentality on ourselves to win big trophies. If we ever compete for trophies, it's like a nice surprise. If we're always like the pinnacle for this club for a long time has always just been getting top 4. Pochettino did make us dream about winning the title, but those were like massive shocks. No one really expected us. We didn't expect of ourselves to go win the title. It was just like a nice surprise that we were involved in those kind of conversations, but it wasn't even a case of the pressure was on Tottenham to win the title. It was just like, oh look, Tottenham in a title race. How nice is that? Yes, he's had opportunities to win trophies at Tottenham, but at the end of the day, I think for Kane himself, I think we've seen it so many times. I think one memory comes back to my mind. I remember when we were playing against in one of Jose Mourinho's seasons, we drew 1-1 or 2-2 away at Everton, and that was like a game which completely killed off any chance of us getting top 4. And I remember like a lot of the players apart from Kane looked like happy with the result because we clawed back a 2-2 draw, and instead of like being absolutely dejected that we've lost any chance of Champions League. And you saw Kane after that game who scored a brace, like looking completely dejected, and I remember the rest of the players were like giving each other high fives and stuff, and like that kind of mentality must have been driving him crazy when he's when he knows he's one of the best number 9s in Europe. He always holds himself to the highest standard. I remember watching in the Amazon documentary, we'd had an unbeaten start under Mourinho, and we lost away at United, his first loss, and all the players were like didn't seem to care as much as Kane did. Kane was like speaking up, saying, look, it's not good enough. Everyone's not following the instructions of the manager, that kind of stuff. But no one else like was speaking up and like taking accountability. He was the only one. So I'm sure he's had years of that, and he must be it must have been very frustrating for him when he's performing at a level that should be competing for titles and leagues, and the rest of the club aren't on the same level as him. So I think he's absolutely right when he speaks about that. Now people should say, look, he's left Tottenham, he shouldn't talk about Tottenham, all that kind of stuff, and he's throwing shade at Spurs. But I think he's asked a direct question. He's just talking about the reality of the situation, so I'm not too mad about it. It's not nice to hear, obviously, but that is the reality.
Yeah, I think so. And like when you're thinking about it as well, it's like Harry Kane, he did have opportunities to win trophies here, Champions League finals, 2 Carabao Cup finals, but the way I look at it is like the club kind of failed to build a team around him. The club failed to match his ambitions, and you can't really sit here and get pissed off about these comments when we know that this is all a fact. These are all factual situations where we didn't buy right players to fit the team around him to go and consistently fight for things at the top, and he had to leave to go and find a club that matches his ambitions, and unfortunately that's a failing of the club. It's not a failing of Harry Kane. So I don't get why all these fans are getting up in arms about these comments, to be honest, because I think they're all just pretty much factual.
Yeah, everyone always uses that thing to beat Kane with the fact that he didn't turn up in like the real big games for Spurs in terms of cup semi-finals and cup finals and things like that. First of all, he was our top ever goal scorer in North London derby, so unless you think those aren't big games, I don't think you can give that claim. And as well, football's a team sport at the end of the day, and there's only so much one player can do. You can't. He needs. Harry Kane's a player. He's not a player who's just going to take the ball and run past 5 players and score by himself. Like, he needs support from the team. And I think a lot of the time, yes, he probably let himself down, but the whole team, it wasn't just him. Like, everyone bottled all those finals. And Spurs never turned up and had a good performance in any of those games. It wasn't just him who didn't have a good game. And also, like, if you're going to use that, if people are going to use that stat, like, Henry never scored in any cup final, like, in his career for Arsenal or Barcelona. So it's like, is he not a big game player? Would people classify Henry as a not big game player?
Yeah, the difference is he actually won them, though. Like,
exactly.
He was part of teams that won it.
Right. But that's not down to him, though. It's down to the team.
You look at players like Didier Drogba, for example. He always stood up for his team in a cup final, no matter what happens. Even if they were playing poorly, Didier Drogba will find himself scoring.
You're talking about the most clutch player in history. Mm-hmm. That's who you're comparing it to.
Yeah, but Harry Kane wants to be compared to these kind of players.
Look, I think he is just as good. And you watch him now, he'll probably do things in big games for Bayern Munich. I reckon, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Drogba always stepped up for his team, but he was part of a very good Chelsea team who won leagues, who were one of the best teams in England and in Europe at the time. So, I mean, yeah, Kane will probably have to look himself a bit about those situations, but I think to use that as a stick to beat him with, for something like that, in my opinion, I just don't think it's worthy of a player of Kane's stature, in my opinion.
I think like he was part of it. You can't say he wasn't part of it. Of course he was. But,
he played, so he was part of it, yeah.
But the fact of the matter is it all just goes back to what I said before, is the club failed him a lot more than he failed us, because I don't think he failed us at all. I mean, he's our top goal scorer of all time, stood up for us in big moments. Yeah, maybe not in big moments in competitions in semi-finals and finals, but he has been integral to what we've done in the last 10 years. So it's much more a failing from the football club than it is from anything else. So I think Spurs fans that are getting angry about these comments from Harry Kane, they should be looking more at the hierarchy at Spurs more than Harry Kane, to be honest.
100%.
Let's move on and let's talk about Richarlison, as Mike McGrath from The Telegraph claims that Tottenham forward Richarlison was the subject of a late bid from Al Ittihad on deadline day in the Saudi Pro League after they failed to land Mohamed Salah. Did we miss a trick not accepting a bid?
No, I think... Well, it depends how much the bid was, but I think Spurs probably need the depth now still with Richarlison. I know he's not playing well. I know there's a lot of talk about him and his bad form, and it's all warranted because he isn't playing well at the moment, but doesn't mean that we should have just not had him at all in the squad going forward. I think we still need to give him a chance to improve and give him more chances to get back into the team and improve his form and get back to the level we know he can get to. So I wouldn't say that it was a missed trick not selling him to Saudi. I don't even know if we rejected the bid. No one really knows. Does it say we rejected a bid? Or does it say like he rejected it or anything? So it doesn't really get that far. So I wouldn't say it was anything we did.
What I would say, though, is that as much as I've been supporting Richarlison all the way through, I've been banging on saying, yeah, Richarlison can fit the system, Richarlison can get goals, which I still believe he can, but you got to look at his attitude at the moment, and it's nowhere near good enough. You're looking at that second half in the Bournemouth game, where it was visibly getting to him and he was just lashing out and showed a terrible mentality in that second half against Bournemouth. And again in Brazil, international break just now, he's crying on the sidelines. He's crying when he gets subbed, when Brazil are winning 5-1 because he's had a poor game and he's missing big chances. I mean, this is just not the attitude, and this is not the kind of mentality we need at Tottenham Hotspur right now.
Well, maybe when Conte said players are being selfish and thinking about themselves, maybe he's referring to one of the players.
That's definitely a
example.
Example, exactly. And I mean, as much as I've been sticking up for Richarlison all this time, he's making it very hard for us to keep sticking up for him.
Because he keeps making it about himself. I know he's not in good form, and it's not great. It's not nice. But like Spurs are winning. We're in a good way at the moment. Brazil are winning 5-1, and he's trying to make both situations about his own performance. And he's disappointed. Look, and it's fine to be disappointed in yourself if you feel like you should be doing better, but you shouldn't outwardly project how disappointed you are in yourself when the team's doing well and the team's winning and playing well. You should be happy for the team rather than depressed about your own performance. And yes, you should go back to the training ground and work doubly as hard to improve yourself and try and get back to those levels. But I think the outward projection of disappointment and like being upset about your own performance doesn't do anyone any favors, and it just creates a negative energy, and that's not what we need. And that's something he definitely needs to work on. But I don't think we just should have sold him to Saudi, because what if Son gets injured? We might need him, you know what I mean? And then we're going to need him anyway. So I don't think we should have sold him to Saudi.
Look, I don't think we should. The only way you could sell him if you bring in a replacement.
We went. You said it was on the Saudi deadline, right?
It was. I didn't. Oh, on deadline day. I don't know if that's Saudi. Yeah, I don't know if it's Saudi deadline day. Deadline day in the. Yeah, deadline day in the Saudi league.
Yeah, so there you go. So we wouldn't be able to replace him.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least, let's talk about Cuti Romero. Michael Bridge on Last Word on Spurs says that with Romero, I got told by a very good source that if Conte would have stayed, Romero would have left. It's irrelevant now, but I don't think them two really clicked at all. And it's interesting because we were talking at some points during the season saying Romero is a proper Conte player, the way he wears his heart on his sleeve and everything like that, and proactive defensively and everything. But it seemed like they didn't get on whatsoever, and I think we kind of did see that towards the latter stages of the Conte era. But I mean, I guess we're all happy that Cuti did stay and maybe Conte did leave.
Well, we have heard, I think this isn't the first time we've heard this, so I think we've heard rumours about Romero saying this before, but I think at the start Romero probably got on very well with Conte because we were playing well. We weren't just so defensively focused in the first 6 months. I thought that suited Romero. But I think in last season, throughout the whole season, we were just dropping deep all the time, and we were always defending in our own box. And it was very difficult for Romero to show his best qualities when he's playing in that kind of system. Romero is a very good defender, but he's not a defender you want playing in a low block. He's a defender you want playing a high aggressive, high pressing system.
Consistently on the front foot.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a defender you want when like they're pummeling 20 crosses into the box and you have to defend them all, and he's going to have to make loads of clearances and headers. He can do it to a decent level, but that's not his forte. His forte is being involved in the action, winning tackles proactively on the halfway line. That's where you want him. So
the pitch, I'm
not surprised if he was getting frustrated with that. Also, you saw that the latter stages of the Conte era, like he got sent off against AC Milan with a really rash challenge, like for no reason. Like he was doing stupid things, like near the end of Conte's era. So I think there's definitely evidence of that. And for him as well, if Conte would have stayed. We know, look, Conte didn't leave at the end of the season. He left while the season was on, so that was never really going to happen. But I'm sure that with the direction we were going, the toxicity in the dressing room, I'm sure a lot of players probably would have wanted to leave, not just him, if Conte would have stayed at that point.
And you're looking at Romero now. I mean, it's a world of difference. It's probably the happiest Romero's actually looked at Spurs, maybe since he first joined. And he's playing his best football of his Spurs career right now. And you can see a different kind of responsibility that he's taken on with the leadership as well. So I, for one, couldn't be happier that Romero is here. I think Messi called him the best defender in the world the other day. I don't quite agree with that he's the best defender in the world just yet, but I think he's definitely a leading player in the Premier League.
Messi knows more than me, so I'm gonna defer to Messi on this. He's played against a lot of defenders, so if Messi says it, I'm gonna agree. That's all I'm gonna say.
The god of football that is Lionel Messi. So I guess we all got to agree on that one. But look, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we've brought to you today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.